Everyone, welcome to Tech Down Over. I'm Rick Zanotti, and I'm joined today by Jeff Blanchard. He is coming to us from the land down under. He's upside down, but we write him in the... It works. Don't ask. It's just magic. And we've got with us today Ken Wheeler again. Always a pleasure to have Ken on. Are we ready?
Hey!
Let's go.
Yeah. Yes, let's go.
And here he is in that middle position of power and control. It's Ken. Hey, Ken, how are you?
Hey. Still beating anorexia.
Yeah. A little bird told me that you really want to buy a Nikon Z7.
I sure don't.
I did
in a nightmare in my dreams. I did, but
you know, I was listening to your reviews of the Z6 and the Z7, and I can't say I disagree with anything at all. Because when it first came out, I was going, oh God,
yeah,
that's it. And I was thinking, even Canon might come out with something more exciting. Hard to believe, but we don't know yet. But that was... Oh, let me ask you something. You know kind of how Nikon works, and you have people on the inside and all that. The D850 is an incredible full-frame camera. But they can't even deliver on that. They're back-ordered all over the place. What makes them think they can deliver on this?
I asked somebody on the inside, and of course they give them a talking line, but the answer that I got a couple days ago from someone that works at Nikon is say, hey, you know, when you order one, it's a maximum of 2-week delivery. I don't think that that's really an issue. So I slightly rolled my eyes and smiled, but that's the answer I got from an official Nikon representative.
Because we heard in some places it takes weeks and weeks or months to get one. They're not readily available. So how are they going to come out with all these Z7s?
In Canada that I heard that it's easy to get them.
Really? But how about all these Z7s and 6s? You think they're going to have enough? I don't know how much demand there'll be, but you think they'll have enough?
They should. I mean, I'm sure some warehouse is stockpiled with thousands of them. The nonsense has been spilled out for the past week or so that, you know, hey, you know, don't judge these images because it's a pre-production camera. Right. I mean, there's already thousands and thousands of these already made. I mean, obviously they can update the firmware, but as far as, you know, anything in the main board or any design change, I mean, nothing like that's going to be changed. So saying pre-production... Nothing.
Well, yeah,
I mean, like you cannot change with the firmware, like SNR firmware output or actual signal interpretation. There's a lot of stuff that can't be changed via firmware.
Yeah, not easily, right?
Mirrorless reinvented, which was Nikon's tagline when I watched their promo video like a week and a half ago. And I made sure that this statement was extremely accurate, and I thought about it. Oh, you know, there's absolutely zero innovation in this camera, nothing whatsoever. And I thought, well, you know, the second statement that was powerful, and I had to make sure, well, is this really right? Because it's a powerful statement, because people will attack me if I'm wrong on it, even very slightly. Is there anything about this camera that says, wow, neat, this is, you know, unexpected, nobody else has it? There's absolutely zero. No. Neat, wow, awesome, this is cool. Hey, this is the one little reason why I want to buy this camera. It might not be awesome, but this little feature makes it so neat to me that I want to buy it, and there's nothing like that within either one of these cameras. I did not test, obviously, the Z6, so I can't talk about that, but I mean, it's obviously the same camera body, different sensor, possibly different image output engine, but I don't know that, but the same body, same ergos and whatnot.
Well, Ken, last week we were talking about the same thing. We were saying it looks like they came out with an A7R III, and they came out with an A7 III. It's like they were trying to copy them, but with 5-year-old technology. They didn't do anything single card slot, really. And an XQD card, they're nice, but like you said, and you said it very accurately, yeah, they're a little tougher, but that doesn't mean they write any better. And that was very accurate. Most people think that tougher means more reliable. No, it doesn't.
I've had an XQD card failure, and actually the tagline that I've heard from several Nikon representatives, that they were asked the question, they were told to repeat, we could not fit any more room into this camera for a secondary card slot. Having fixed cameras for 20 years, take part of a lot of these digital cameras, the fact they could have added maybe 2 or 3 or 4 millimeters to one corner of the camera, that's absolutely not true. I know for 100% fact that is not true at all. The important third statement I had to make about the camera, and I made sure it was accurate, and I thought about it over and over and over again, is what is this camera ultimately, to make it completely reducible and very simplex, that it is a Nikon D5000-ish camera. Yes, it does have a 45 megapixel sensor in it, but it's a D5000-ish camera that's had a sex change as a mirrorless camera.
So let me ask you, Ken, as a 45 megapixel camera, that puts in a medium format range. What in this camera would make it able to take advantage of that?
On this camera, take advantage of that? Everything is on the main board. I've been told by two people on the inside that it has the exact same main board as the Nikon D850 does.
Oh, interesting.
The only actual additional strain on this camera is obviously feeding the TV screen, i.e. the EVF, as opposed to the Nikon D850, which is, of course, nothing. You know, there's no power requirement for that, since you're talking about a mirror through the optical viewfinder. So that's the only additional processing power required for this. Actually, there's a little bit more on WYSIWYG interpretation for not only feeding the EVF, but updating it as well to have the correct WYSIWYG, whether you do compensation adjustment on the camera or not. But I could only think of one tiny group of people that should consider this camera, people that have like a lot of money and that travel, you know, like the really rich people that buy an expensive Leica camera, someone that has once credible croppability and an extremely lightweight camera. Actually, these cameras with the little kit lenses, and that's really what they are. They're very cheap and flimsy kit lenses, but I mean, the camera with lens is extremely lightweight. So if you wanted a little lightweight, backpacking, high croppability travel camera, and this would be it. But I cannot think for the life of me who else this would be justifiable to.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff?
Yeah, but the thing is, I find with that, you know, I'm not a great expert on cameras, but when I'm looking for a camera, if they tell me something, they've reinvented the camera and doing that, I want to see things better than everybody else. But if I probably didn't see anything else, I might think, oh, that's a nice camera. But when they go out to say it's the best camera ever, sort of thing, and it even leaves me a bit short, because all the things I want on a camera, it's sort of missing things on that. And I'm not too demanding, but it'll be interesting to see who gives it. If anybody gives it a nice review out there and says everything's really nice, then I'll know which people not to listen to anymore, I think.
People have really short memories in the camera world, apparently. I was the first person to review the Nikon D500, and I got raked over the coals really hard. I said, it's a legendary camera, and everybody should buy it. And they said, oh, no, you're so crazy. This is an expensive crop sensor camera. This is a failure. I said, no, Nikon's going to sell a mountain of these, and that's exactly what happened.
Now, you know, Ken, I must have been one of the few. I bought a D500 when it came out, and I sent it back 3 days. I had bad focus. It would not focus. I think I got a lemon. No matter what I tried, it wouldn't focus, especially at night. It was horrific. And I went, gee, I wanted to love that camera, and I just wound up sending it back. And, you know, when you get a bad one, you kind of like, do I want another one? And I didn't. Yeah. But I literally got a bad one. And I got a bad Fuji, too, on an X-T2. I bought two. One was fine. And the other one, I think I told you about. You're still probably going to get it from me, and you can test and see if you can fix it. It shows half the screen clear and the other half totally blurry, and it's both on the EVF and the back screen. So I think something just went bad on it, and I'm very gentle with my cameras.
That's a new innovation, the dual focus screen, you see, so you can have
if that were only on the LCD, I know immediately what it would be. It would be a damaged Flexa cable, which is really common, but the fact that it's feeding both the EVF and the LCD like that, then that means it's a main board failure. And what camera is that on?
That's on the XT2.
Really? Yeah, it's a main board failure. That's.
I'm gonna send that off to you soon, and you can take a look at it, because I think the warranty probably expired already. And I'll let you, if you can fix it, great. If not, oh well.
And then you said it's an XT2, right? I'm not going anywhere. Hold on one second. If it's a main board failure, you're going to find this really funny. If it's a main board failure, I have that replacement part right here. This is an XT2 main board.
Oh, how funny. Okay, cool. Well, you know what? I'll send it out next week to you.
It's very odd that you have that issue and I have that spare part with 3 feet of me. Interestingly enough, I told people too last night that if you took an XH1, which is $2,000 essentially, here's 24 megapixel. Yeah, it has IBIS, it's made in Japan, and a Sony A7 III. You know, basically $2,000. Yes, it is a full frame sensor camera, and then you put right in the middle the Nikon Z7, and you said, hey, it's made in Japan, but you didn't tell someone the price. You said, the one thing that sets this Z7 out, even though it has autofocus issues and some design issues and whatnot, it's a 45 megapixel camera like the Nikon D850, what would be the price of this camera? And someone would say between $2,200 and $2,600, but it's exactly the same price as the D850.
Well, the D850 is only 26.
Pardon me?
The D850 is more, isn't it? 32 or 35? I can't remember.
$3,300. This
33.
one's
That's not a bad
$100 more
price
than
for
that.
that.
Essentially the same price.
We've got a YouTube comment.
What's that?
It's Sarah. She says, "Are you psychic, Ken?"
Psychic in what regard?
I think with the circuit board you just held up, I think.
Oh, the main board, you mean?
The main board, yeah. Because just knowing that Rick had the problem with his camera.
I've got a lot of camera parts laying around.
So do you rip a lot? Do you dismantle a lot of the cameras just to see how they work? Are you one of those sort of people?
No, kind of like same of these car guys will buy like cars that somebody wrecked into somebody else. They'll Frankenstein them out and they'll take parts out, and then the parts will be sold on eBay, go here and there, and used to fix another camera. Like here's an XT2 sensor, for example.
Oh, interesting.
All sorts of stuff playing around.
So Ken, how did you become kind of an expert at fixing cameras, and what's your favorite camera to fix?
Actually, my dad used to work at IBM back in the days of the typewriters and whatnot, and IBM used to have these huge bins where they'd take dead, whatever they were. Most of them were electronic or electroset typewriters, if you get the model. He would bring them home, and if you actually had like 4 or 5 dead ones, you could Frankenstein them and build one good one. So I grew up with most fun. I'd sit in front of the TV with a pair of screwdrivers, Phillips and flathead, tearing stuff apart, see how stuff was made, and fixing them, and see. You know, you got to be careful with flexi cables. This how it connects with this. This is how you solder this to that. And that got into laptops and cameras. Used to fix laptops as well.
That's pretty cool. So what's your favorite camera to fix? So in terms of well-designed, well-made?
All of them are like 10 pounds of acorns in a 5-pound sack. They're really horrible to take apart. They're nightmares. Actually, the easiest one to fix, to say which one's the easiest, like which one's the most modularly simple, be like Nikon D4, Nikon D3 series. XT2 is actually really simple and straightforward. So was the Nikon D500, actually. D500 was amazingly simplex. Actually, when I took it apart, someone sent me one that fell in the creek, and actually that's the one I used to film my ugly face with all the time, is the D500. He sent it to me, it wasn't working, I took it apart and fixed it, and I found it amazingly simple, because it's just a nightmare. When you take them apart, you just about want to commit suicide, because there's 1,000 different screws, and they're all different lengths and sizes, and it's just a Chinese jigsaw
And there's
puzzle.
not a lot of, I'm actually surprised cameras don't run hotter, because there's not a lot of space in these, is there?
No, there is not. There actually was a surprising amount of space in the Nikon D500. There is not. Amazingly, like the worst ones are like the D800 series. I'm trying to think. D750 was horrible. There's actually one guy on YouTube that actually takes cameras apart. He stopped doing that. I don't know why, but he's got hundreds or so videos uploaded. A lot of people were surprised that the Nikon people or DSLR users are surprised that there's actually a mechanical shutter in the new Nikon Z7 and Z6. Well, it's necessitatively there. I mean, you can't do a flash photography or get away with pulling shutter without a mech shutter.
All of the mirrorless do have a mechanical shutter, just that they can also go electronic 100%.
Global shutters are not there yet. 5 days from now is going to be photography Armageddon, because Canon's going to announce their new mirrorless, the XT3. The images have already been leaked by Nokoshita, and that's going to be announced. That's my birthday, by the way. Hey!
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah.
So did you think Canon's going to announce, or they'll wait till Photokina?
They said they would. Actually, they've been leaked everywhere as of a few hours ago that Canon would announce their new mirrorless camera.
So what do you think? Do you think it's going to be like a 5D Mark IV mirrorless version, or some little thing that is just really small?
I don't know, honest to goodness.
There's
not enough details in order to have any insight. I know one thing for certain. The fact that the new DP forum review board that they created for the new Nikon Z, and the enormous, other than the ambassadors, who of course are nothing other than talking heads for Nikon, understandably so. You've never heard a Nikon ambassador say anything bad about a Nikon, other than the talking heads that are praising the Z6 and the Z7. I mean, it's actually come out like a dead bunny rabbit. And the fact that 6 days from now, Fujifilm is going to have their X-T3 announcement, which is going to be a lot cheaper than the X-T2 because it's made in China. So they're able to offer a cheaper price point. So it's going to be like an X-T2 on super steroids, except a lot cheaper. Everybody's going to buy the heck out of it. The fact that a lot of people are telling me they're canceling their Z7 orders and Z6 orders, they got money burning a hole in their pocket, and now they're going to be lured away by Canon and a Fujifilm with these new offerings in 6 days. And also Sony with their new camera. I'm very sorry that Nikon is going to suffer really badly because of what they released, when they released, and relative to what Fujifilm and Canon or Sony are releasing here in a few days.
Well,
I think Nikon's going to be lost down a dark hole.
Do you remember a year ago the CEO of Nikon arrogantly said, "When we come out with mirrorless, it will be the best. No one can stop us." Yeah, and it's like,
I've said this like 1,000 times in 1,000 videos. Even though I love Nikon, I have their logo tattooed on my hand. I mean, I own a lot of Nikon stuff. They got a lot of my money. I've said 1,000 times they're the most, other than Leica, they're an insanely arrogant company. They really, really are. I know they didn't consult with any pros in the manufacture of this. They had some sort of inside dark room or a bunch of the people put it together and made consultations. It's exactly like 1980s IBM.
Yep.
It's just too big to fail. We are Nikon. I mean, from their perspective, Canon and Nikon still own 100% of hardcore professional sports action and wildlife.
Well, they actually do.
Obviously,
they actually do. There was it came out of Japan, the results of who had the best of DSLRs. Canon was 70% of the market, and Nikon was the rest. Literally, they own, one owns about 2/3, the other owns the other third, and they still own it. Now, mind you, that's probably a slightly shrinking market with all the competition with mirrorless right now, but it's still an enormous amount of cameras. And guess who was number one in mirrorless cameras? It might shock you.
Sony.
No, Canon, and by far. That
the
little
M5,
M50 they came out with is selling millions. It's killing everybody.
Actually, that M5 was so impressive. If the lenses weren't so absolutely horrible, I would have bought one of those cameras. I even talked to the Canon rep. I said, this camera is wonderful, but these lenses for this camera are abysmal. And he goes, yeah, you're right. You're right.
I have the M5. It's cute, and it takes beautiful pictures. It's got the great color science in it. The lenses for the M are just crap, but when you put the adapter on, it really runs well on all the other. I haven't had an issue with either video or photos. It's really clean. So that adapter, which looks like a simple pass-through, does a good job.
Supposedly, Canon is rolling out a new breed of sensors that have dynamic range. One thing everybody's complained about Canon was insufficient dynamic range and being ISO-less and low-light performance. And apparently Canon's been listening, and if they actually stick their new generation of sensors in their mirrorless full frame, and it's something even 30% better than the Nikon Z7, which would not take much, then they're gonna roll like a winner down the street for 2018. Apparently,
hey, we heard. And you showed us a little bit pre-show, one of your science fans from when you did your talk up in Idaho. You got a beautiful little car.
Yeah, as a mega millionaire, he liked my, there we go, BMW Z4 Cherry Red.
That is so cool.
That's why my face is sunburned, actually. Oh my gosh! I made a video about how the biggest regret I ever had after my wife died was getting rid of my Z3.
Oh, and, so you had one.
Hey, I got a car for you in Louisville. He said, "Go look at it." He said, "I want you to, scope it out and take it to a mechanic, make sure everything's good on it." And I put a $200 hold on it. I said, "What, really?" So it took me an hour and a half to drive to Louisville, Kentucky. Gave it a test drive, and then he talked to the owner, who's a Russian guy. He loved me because I speak perfect Russian. I was cracking jokes in Russian, and he bought it. So it's like I drove it home. It's like, wow, that's pretty unbelievable.
Cool. That's pretty cool. So how did that? I saw your videos on that. How did you feel doing that talk up in Idaho? And I'm trying to remember. Somebody asked me the other day, what was the name of the group you were doing it for? And I couldn't remember the association or group. Who did you give that science talk to?
That was Aaron Murakami. It's the Energy and Science Conference in Hayden, Idaho. It was the most horrible flight I did the whole lecture for free. I was happy to do it. Flew to Atlanta, and then flew to Seattle, and then flew to Spokane, and then a bus to Hayden, Idaho. I think their response was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I've never given a lecture before. I mean, I did it over to myself like about 30 times in my house, but
Yeah.
you know, afterwards, I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. Everybody came up to me, they're shaking my hands, everybody wanted my autograph, which I've never had anything like that done to me before in my life. It was, I mean, I'm actually not exaggerating or puffing myself up. I mean, I could not believe it. I just kept pinching myself going, is this real? This is unbelievable. These people are like treating me like some sort of rock star after a concert or something. It was extremely surreal.
Do you think it was because you said things that they've either heard before and ignored, or they just never heard before?
No, I know a lot of the stuff they'd never heard before.
Okay.
There was a lot of connecting the dots, but that was certainly not more than half of it. Half of it was definitely, wow, you know, this hyperlogical, this is Occam's razor, perfect paradigm, makes perfect logical sense. And I told everybody, you know, I'm not selling anything. You know, of course, the lecture was free. I mean, I flew out there for free, and it was actually quite stressful. And to me, I don't like flying that much, and you know, I had to do a lot to prepare for the lecture. I mean, I already had all the notes and stuff, but to condense an enormous amount of material down into, you know, an hour and a half lecture was difficult. And then I have to recite it over and over and over again, you know, using the digital projector on the wall and, you know, talking to myself, giving the lecture to myself. So It was an enormous amount of work for, you know, zero pay. Of course, I had no idea that, you know, there'd be a mega millionaire there that, you know, watched one of my videos and say, oh, I feel sorry about you. You know, I got a BMW for you waiting. Like, oh, my goodness.
You know, how's your new book coming? I know you've been writing it. Is this version 4 now?
It is version 4.
I think I have 3. I think I have version 3 of the book. It's either 2 or 3. I think it's 3.
A lot of people
what's going to be
my
new in this
content.
one?
There's some guy in Australia, I forget his name, who's giving a lecture himself on magnetism, and someone said, you got to watch this guy's video. I said, half the stuff he's saying is copied directly from your book and your lecture. And I watched it, and sure enough, it was the case. I'm watching this guy, an Australian accent. I don't know where he's at in Australia. I've got the video pulled up somewhere. You know, he's giving a lecture. He's giving my lecture, basically. And like, well,
I mean, what do they say? Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery?
You know. Huh?
Are they saying imitation is the most sincere form of flattery?
I guess. I don't mind that. That's the reason we don't actually stick the 4th edition out until I actually publish it, because there have been 3 or 4, more than that, actually say, hey, you know, this is my stuff first, you're taking my stuff. Like, no, you know, I published it, here I wrote it first, here's the copyright date.
So were you talking to engineers, physicists? Who was the typical audience member?
Field theorists. 70% of them field theorists. I mean, like 10% free energy people. I'm not a free energy person at all. No such thing as a free lunch. Retired electrical engineers. Actually, the average audience age was, I don't know, 55 or something like that. Yeah, average age was. There was like about 20 women there, and they were all giving me hugs, and a couple of them kept giving me kisses, and one guy actually, it was very, very strange. I mean, it's like he was, you know, he traveled Tibet and he climbed to the top of a mountain. He was, you know, meeting his guru. I mean, it was not only strange, I don't like that, not to be rude, but I mean, that's extremely surreal and strange. I'm just a nobody field theorist. I had no idea I'd get a response like that. I did get an old dude, about 68 years old, who heckled me once during the lecture for about 2 or 3 minutes, but someone said, oh, he does that to everybody. So it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, next time you do that, if they're really old, just say, would you like some Metamucil?
Yeah, no, I get heckled all the time on YouTube. People say the most vile things I could never, ever repeat to anybody.
No, we've seen some of the stuff people write on you. They're nasty.
Yeah, well, I don't come across as the nicest person in the world, but I'm not selling anything, and I'm not trying to pick anybody's pocket either. I mean,
well, one of the last times you were on, Sarah and I were reviewing comments afterwards, and one person said, your podcast has lost total respectability in my eyes since you brought Ken Wheeler on. He is a fraud. He should never have been on. Yeah. And we said, you know what? We know Ken. We like Ken. We don't totally disagree with Ken, and we agree with a lot of what Ken says, and we're not going to close our minds just because you don't like him. And the guy never complained again and still watches the show. So whatever.
The funny thing, I said, the funny thing I find about the people that complain about people like Ken and that and do horrible remarks, they follow him around everywhere to wherever he go, wherever he's doing anything to comment, so they can't bear not to see what he has to say. So, but I think these people, that's their thing in life, is just to put horrible comments on. But having said that, Ken, I think nobody's made it on YouTube if they don't have any horrible comments. They can't be saying anything decent, because it said you've got to have something that somebody's got to disagree with you no matter what you say, and if you don't have comments, hey, nobody's watching your videos. So I
know the people I rub the wrong way the most are, number 1 are Australians, number 2 are British, number 3 are Germans, and
now why Aussies?
Oh, Canadians are right there in a tie with the Germans. I don't know. I do get a lot of Australians. They just they are correct. I've seen a lot of Australian TV shows. Of course, there are stereotypes of Australians of like folks in the outback. They're kind of like my speed, a little bit crass, a little bit in your face. You say it like it is. No sugarcoating it. I'm very much like that, but I don't know why. They just actually they tell me. They say I'm a little too crass. I'm a little too in your face, and just kind of like I don't know, like some sort of fat guy wearing a sleeveless shirt and Cooper PD. That's I'm not that I've ever been there. Some sort of Australian stereotype. I don't know, kind of like some sort of American stereotype. Maybe I'm like some sort of hillbilly that like came across $100,000 and I got myself a shave and a haircut, but inherently I'm some sort of some sort of crass, unintelligent, knuckle-dragging goober, and they just love to hate me. Isn't that what they say? I used to say goober all the time.
Yep.
Goober just means like, some generic fool that you love to hate or something like that.
Remember Guru, what was his name? Goober on Mayberry RFD or something?
Gomer Pyle, yeah.
Yeah, Gomer Pyle, Goober. Yep.
Shazam!
Shazam, Shazam!
Golly, Sergeant!
Golly! The guy that actually, the famous photographer Benjamin Canarak, he's told me the story a couple of times. He's in Paris, France. He's a Canadian. I talk to him all the time, and he said the first experience with me is he saw some video where I reviewed the 135 millimeter Nikon, and he said out loud to his wife, he said, "Come look at this stupid hillbilly idiot scumbag," and it was me doing a parody of Billy Bob Thornton. I was reviewing a lens holding, going like, "This is one good fine lens," and so he thought that's who I was.
It's probably like that video you did. What's it? Just the other day of the advertising executive on the phone. That was so good. You did that so well. Somebody thought.
Oh,
did you see that, Rick?
I did.
It was so funny. I was just laughing myself. I think you've missed your calling, Ken. I think you should just go into acting as well.
Someone said I need to be the next Bond Carol. All I need to do is get a white pussy cat that I could sit there and pet like this. Nobody got the
Spectre.
Yeah, but
I don't like me either. When I look at my videos, I'm like, oh my god, look at that. Fat, bald idiots, but then I rational. It's like, I'm not taking anybody's, I do ask for donations because I killed myself with all the comments and emails and phone calls. They're just endless. I spent 5.5 hours today just answering comments, and I say to myself, I'm not selling anything. I know my personality sucks. I know I'm ugly, but I'm pretty smart. I've had my hands on more cameras than the rest of these guys combined. I'm just, trying to be honest and do an honest, fair review. I raked the Nikon Z7 over the coals, but for God's sakes, I got Nikon tattooed on my skin for the rest of my life. I love Nikon. If they made an awesome camera that I had my hands on yesterday, I'd been the first person to, to climb on top of the roof and say, hey, this is awesome. Everybody go out and buy one. Doesn't matter what I do. If I said it was awesome, people were calling me a Nikon fanboy for years, and now that I'm hating on this thing, they say, well, you're just, and I got this like 100 comment, you're just a Fuji fanboy. You hate Nikon now. You've been bought out by Fuji. Can't win. Cannot win, catch 22.
I got to show you something, and I wonder if this is going to wind up in cameras. This is the brand new Samsung Note 9. Just came out. I got it last weekend. This thing has water cooling. It's got carbon, copper pipes all across the back in a grid. Plus, I don't know if any other phones have it, but this is interesting. I wonder when cameras are going to start putting in little water cooling systems to keep.
It doesn't circulate it, obviously, since it's not hooked up anything. I guess
I'm not sure how they do it.
It dissipates the heat to the surface there. The casing must be metal, and there must be copper. There's no way it could dissipate it if the casing were plastic.
No, it's glass. Well, there's probably glass and metal. I think there is glass and metal. A metal on one side. So I was pretty amazed. They put water cooling on a phone. So do you think they'll ever do it on a camera?
That's like amazing. No, I could see that cracking. They actually have water cooled on process the graphics cards on high-end gaming machines.
So actually, we have it right here. We have on our new. We had it a year ago, but it didn't work until recently when they had some upgrades. We couldn't get our video capture cards to work, but we have an Alienware Area 51 from Dell, which is our new video switching machine, and it has water cooling on the 1080 Ti. I'm not sure what brand they're using, but this is a Dell machine, so who knows. And it's got water cooling on the CPU, which is an i9, and it runs really quiet, and it is fast. I think it's got 36 cores, by the way, on the i9, so it's a screamer. We wanted a fast video switcher, and this thing seems to be able to do it.
They got cryogenic cooling on digital sensors that are used for astrophotography. I did a video demo where I took the same picture of a hot point and shoot camera, then I stuck it in a Ziploc bag and threw it in the freezer for an hour, and I took the same shot, and of course there's a lot less noise. The EMI and RFI actually drastically affect
interesting
the signal that's captured on the sensor.
People and it didn't damage the camera at all in terms of taking a shot.
Yeah, the main board gets leaky when it's actually processing all that information, and it leaks out the EMI and RFI to the sensor, which there's no difference ultimately between light and EMI and RFI, and the sensor is going to pick it up.
Yeah. Interesting.
People thinking light is like some sort of particle. If that's the case, we have to take that lens off our camera at the end of every day and shake out the photons. Everything is electrical.
I know. Well, it is sort of interesting because that's what everybody has been taught forever. Light's a particle, atoms do this and that. And I remember when I was in physics and chemistry classes in school, I was like, yeah, it sounded plausible, but it didn't quite sound right. And once I came across your stuff, I was going, I am more than willing to believe this. And like you said, you've been able to quantify it pretty well. Tesla, I think, was also on the same track of what he was doing with field theory versus what everyone else did, it seemed. Though they stole everything Tesla did and kept it for themselves and then basically bankrupted the poor guy. Very interesting. Good government.
There's 1,000 ways to stump a physicist. Always ask them how light is able to speed back up after it leaves glass, for example, where it slows down an average of 30% without breaking the law of conservation of energy. Yeah, like light steps on the gas and speeds back up again.
Yeah.
They'll never be able to answer that one, or wireless power transfer.
What is your answer on that? Because you're right. If as light goes through something, technically it slows down, but it comes out, it is back to normal speed. Is that because light emits versus...
Light doesn't travel at all. It's just a simple rate of induction. The only logical way of actually explaining the quote-unquote speed of light is a rate of induction. It's actually a perturbation of the medium itself rather than something traveling. Mm-hmm. Like waves in the ocean are not actually moving. I mean, they do actually start to culminate and actually break as they hit the shore, but I mean, it's pistons going up in your car. The pistons are not moving this way. Actually, of course, the crankshaft, I won't take that analogy too far, but you're talking about a perturbation like someone in the middle of a pond flapping their arms. They're not emitting anything. They're causing a perturbation in the medium that they're within. Yeah. So nothing is being emitted.
So would you say, and this is just a question, it's probably a stupid question, but when you turn on a light, for example, a fluorescent light or something, the room is instantly covered in the light. It doesn't seem like light even travels. It is emitted. It's just there. Light's everywhere at once. Is that basically what's happening?
Light's only a principle. We only speak of light in the case of illumination. We're talking about capacitance, resistance, permeability, permittivity. No one ever sees light unless it's manifest. And I use the analogy that I came up with of the invisible person. An invisible person would be completely blind. If they're completely transparent, then there's no other capacitance, resistance, permeability, dielectric permittivity, or magnetic permeability because there would be no manifestation. We only speak of light in terms of manifestation, and that manifestation is only resistance. And this, of course, is where we get the ideas of superconductivity, how a magnet is able to float above like a yttrium, barium, copper oxide superconductor. It's not superconducting anything. It just becomes literally bulletproof to a magnetic field. I mean, I grew up with, at the age of 13, I think the one thing I asked for Christmas was a Dewar flask for holding liquid nitrogen, and I would do a lot of superconductor experiments, and I always knew that the premise of that was completely absurd. Nothing is superconductivity. There's no superconductivity going on. There's actually zero magnetic permeability through the ceramic, yttrium, barium, copper oxide, or any of the other so-called superconductive materials. It becomes literally zero permeability to the magnetic field.
Now, do you ever think they'll get cold fusion to work?
I don't know.
It's an interesting... They're working on it. They've tried. I don't think they've gotten it yet, but...
That was a big talk in the 1980s, but I don't have any information on that.
Yeah,
I couldn't actually comment intelligently on it.
I know there were some fakes that claimed they did it, but then they couldn't prove it.
Exactly. Russians were most of those.
Yep. Jeff?
I was just going to say, now that's gone way over my head, but I just sort of got out of that there could be invisible people, but we just don't know because they won't be able to see us and do anything. So they could be there, but you can't see them, they can't do anything. So who knows? They might be there.
We'll call that a thought experiment. And there's another thought experiment like that. They say, well, nothing travels faster than the speed of light. I mean, that's palpably incorrect. I mean, since light is not a speed, it's a rate of induction. For example, we talk about the disappearing sun experiment. If there's nothing in the universe other than the Earth and sun the were to immediately vanish, why is it that the Earth would go flying off into the universe before it takes 8 minutes, of course, the distance, the speed of light between the sun and the Earth to travel, that the Earth would immediately fly off into the cosmos? And of course, we have nuclear reactors. There's something called Cherenkov radiation. It's this eerie blue radiation that's emitted from the deep well pools of nuclear reactors, and that, of course, travels quote-unquote faster than the speed of light. So this universal speed limit is non-existent, and it has no basis in reality. Longitudinal waves, they're not waves, of course, they're scalar waves. They're not actually measured in cycles per second, but in volts per second, i.e. scalar wave technology that was discovered by Nikola Tesla. These, of course, have been proven to, quote, travel faster than the speed of light. There's even a few people on YouTube that have actually created valid empirical measurements with equipment that no one's denied of scalar wave tech traveling at 2.2 and 1.6 times the speed of light. It's not a speed, it's just a rate of induction. That's the maximum limitation for any field perturbation to propagate that has a transverse component, where we actually have transversing electrical magnetic component, the coaxial nature of light, which is a transverse electromagnetic longitudinal pulse perturbation. It's a coaxial circuit of a field, which is what light is.
Well, actually, aren't cell phones nothing more than scalar wave devices? I thought they used scalar
800
fields.
and 1.2 megahertz. Now at 2.4 megahertz.
Yeah, no, I thought they're higher now. I thought they're getting higher.
800. I said 800 megahertz, 1.2 gigahertz, and 2.4 gigahertz are the FEC frequencies for current cell phone tech.
But it's a scalar field, I believe, what they're using.
Scalar field, no. Lithium pack and regular. What is it? What is it? The patented code for. It was patented not by Verizon, but by somebody else. The specific type of packet technology that cell phones operate off of. Used to be ham radio operator. I've forgotten that.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about the new 5G that's going to be coming out and how it could probably cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, it's also the reason why LED lights are so dangerous. People think of laser light as coherent light. I mean, that's true attributionally, but what lasers are point source illumination. Actually, I gave a part of my lecture in magnetism was about what lasers actually are as point source emissions. LEDs are point sources. If you actually stare at a blue LED, which is the most dangerous, it has like 1.6 EV more powerful than red LED light. You'll notice after looking at one from a few feet away, close your eyes. I mean, it's burned in the back of your eyes for quite a long period of time. All these LED bulbs that they're actually selling people, they're actually damaging people's eyes. I know they consume a lot less power, and obvious reasons for having that, but it is harmful to your eyes.
So what do you recommend? Because we have like lots of LEDs like in front of us and everything else, and I do wonder what the final effects of the LEDs are. They're very bright, and I do think they affect the retina. What do you think we're going to wind up with all these?
They start to discover that they cause problems, and they'll find some way around it by putting some sort of diffusion filter over top of a strong LED lighting. That should help a lot, but
Yeah, I still think we're going to have the same problem with our LED monitors. We're all in front of LED monitors all day long half the time. What is that doing to us?
Like me right now. I try not to sit too close.
Yeah.
Wear polarizing lenses to cut down on the light.
Okay. Well, that's true. You can get clear polarizers. That would work, right?
To a point. You're still looking at LEDs, though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little scary.
Well, that's the new organic monitors. What are they? A lot less power consumption. What are they again? You know more about that than I do.
I know what you're talking about, but I'm not
monitors.
sure what they're called. Well, those are the OLEDs, the organic LEDs. They're out, but they're so expensive right now.
Flexible screens, the ones that are thin as a...
Yep, that's organic LEDs.
They are.
They're OLEDs, and you can.
What's the one that Apple just bought a multi-million-dollar company like a half a year ago that's going to make the next revolution in displays for computers? I forgot what sort of tech that is. That is an OLED.
I think it is an OLED. Yeah, it's a flexible OLED design. It's pretty cool. Hey, Ken, I don't know if you know, but I've got really bad eyesight. To the point of probably partial blindness at night. I have retinitis pigmentosa. I'm doing a new experimental red laser treatment on the eye, and it's fascinating. They just paint your eye with the red LED on the inside, on the macula, and then it's a 3-minute treatment for each eye. And then when you're done, it's amazing because retinitis pigmentosa starts closing in your vision. You start getting a little bit of tunnel vision. You lose the peripheral. Within one treatment, within 1 hour of one treatment, you're almost at 180 degrees on both eyes. It's amazing. And what that does is the red LED not only stimulates the eye, but also stimulates the body's ability to generate stem cells, which then go into the eye where they're needed and start recreating the eye. These were Harvard experiments, MIT, and some other places that did this. Really fascinating. So far, I've had 2 treatments, and I've seen some marked improvements. Interesting. Want to see where that goes.
I've heard that used on little cancerous melanomas and whatnot is supposed to help regenerate cells and kill off the cancer cells.
Interesting. Is that what they might be? Yeah, those are the red LEDs?
I've heard of that before. I didn't know about the particular eye one you're referring to.
Yeah, it might be. It might be because this is along the same lines. They're using it in fields, in electromagnetic fields that they're using for, let's say, joint treatments or inflammation. Same idea. They generate an electromagnetic field along the same lines as the red laser. So it's fascinating what people are doing. So, yeah, I think medicine's going to change a lot in the next 5 years.
I hope so. I hope they cure cancer, for God's sakes.
Oh, I think they can. It's just that they don't. So, yeah. Well, anyway, Ken, hey, we are just about out of time. It's always a pleasure to see you. I'm going to be sending you my camera next week, so I'll make sure I have your address. I think I might have it, but I'll send you an email to get your address again, and we'll GPS it out or FedEx it out to you, and let me know if you can fix it, and then we'll just pay you for it.
Ken's frozen there. He's just sat there. He's frozen. It must have been it must have been something you said.
It's that red
Rick,
laser. Damn that red laser. Oh, is he frozen? The machine froze up. So we don't know if it's a machine or Ken. But hey, Ken, thank you so much for being on. We will talk to you soon. I'll send you an email. And always a pleasure to see you. Have a good one, Jeff, as always. I'll see you next time. If you're around, Jeff, tomorrow, I'll give you a call.
Certainly will do. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone. Take care. I was calling in.